Scott, did you want to facilitate this in any way, or I can share the load with you?
I guess I can just say thank you to the Joseph family for all you've done to this show. And thank you to the cast for coming out and doing this tonight. We haven't been able to do too many of these, so it's awesome to be able to do it. So that's really all I have to say. If you want to take it away, because you know everybody, I don't. So.
I'd just like to have all these people just introduce themselves and say what they do in the show.
I'm Alex Farha. I play the oud and the darbuka. I swing, so I do the music swing, so I don't play every night. I didn't play tonight, but I'll go on every once in a while.
Awesome.
I'm Clay. I play Itzik.
I'm Kendall. I play Iris.
I'm Dana. I play a swing, and I swung on tonight for Anna.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm Sammy.
I'm Janet. I play Dina.
I'm Hannah. I'm standby for the 4 women and the dance captain.
I'm Kobe. I play Poppy.
Josh. I play telephone guy.
I'm James. I play Sumo.
I'm Leanne. I play Julia.
Hi. So, folks, if you have any questions, first I would ask you to just say who you are and what brought you here. We'll let Yoni introduce himself.
Hello, I am Yoni. I play Kamal, who's the violinist, and I'm a friend of Joe's.
So I'd like to have any questions that you guys, any thoughts, comments, responses, go ahead, shoot. If you raise your hand, I'll call on.
Anything.
Back there.
I'm your cousin. Finally glad to see you in the play, musical. It was fantastic. Everyone was great. I don't think I have a question yet, but I just wanted to let you know that it was great.
Hello. Hello. No questions at all. Okay.
What's your favorite thing to do in the cities that you visit while you're on tour? Like something specific?
Saturday nights we have Shabbat shots, so we all do a shot at the end of the show on Saturday.
Is one coming out?
Yes!
It may have happened already.
One might have happened. And,
I'd say food.
yeah.
Food, like finding the local specialty. Like asking people, like you get in an Uber from the airport and be like, where do I have to eat? I always say, any local, what's the food? And that's the way to see
Have you
the
had a
country.
Coney yet? Have you had any Coney dogs yet?
Not yet.
Buddy's Pizza?
I know.
We got a great guide actually to Detroit from Joe. He put together a list of the spots that are essential to check out. So we've been slowly, working through it. Yeah. What did you say?
Lafayette, Coney Island, you have to. That's my father, by the way.
Well, Lafayette and there's what? American is right next door, right?
Yeah, but you gotta go to Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Not American.
What's that?
Everyone talks about Lafayette.
Yeah, that's
Everyone talks about Lafayette.
that one's right on the corner.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a larger place.
Yeah.
But they're both really good.
But it's famous.
Yeah.
It's been it's
Yeah, don't go to the bathroom.
unless you really have to, you can do it. Yeah. Any other questions? Rick.
My name is Rick. I'm Joe's uncle. And my question is to all of you.
Because he was yelling.
I was the one who was saying, "Yeah, Joe!" How has your role in the band's visit been similar and different to other roles you've played in all the other shows in your career?
One at a time.
I'll jump out there. I think beyond our specific roles, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I think the experience itself is very different than what a lot of us have done in musical theater, because it's not a traditional musical theater piece with singing and dancing and broad acting. Everything is just very conversational, very communicative, and for me specifically, I can't remember the last time that I've done a musical where I could just talk and not have to project so much and not have to be so large for a theater. It's just a great feeling to feel like you're speaking to people in a way that you would normally speak to someone. I think it's a very unique experience.
I agree with that, and I'll say, like, I spent a large portion of my career as a dancer, and so to have a show like this where I not only don't have to dance but get to sit and eat cake, it's like, this is a dream come true. As far as I'm concerned, I'm like, this from here on out.
The local food and the cake, we know where Kendall's
I like to eat.
I think, I'm sorry, I think culturally, what's so wonderful and rather new is the fact that, you know, the past 2 decades, so many parts for characters in the Middle East, it's always had a very a negative or a very violent aspect of the characters, and we don't really see that in these. We see human beings who are just trying to get on with their lives and make the most of it, and just make the best of things. And, you know, seeing people, there's an argument that Joe has with the guy at the rink, but there's no argument at the dinner table. We're having dinner. You know, that's a wonderful lesson.
Oh, well, I mean, I was gonna say, I never thought I'd be speaking Hebrew in a Broadway musical, you know, or like, I'm sure people can relate in terms of Arabic, and yeah, I mean, it's been a really special experience to be able to be a part of something that celebrates Middle Eastern culture, and you know, my family's Israeli, so getting to like connect with that part of me that I didn't think I was gonna get to explore on this scale has been really, really special and really rewarding, and connecting with other people who have different backgrounds, and I think we've all had, you know, interesting, you know, experience with the show that's different from your typical Broadway musical or play.
On the other side of the spectrum, some of us I feel like I have covered a lot of parts throughout my career, so like covering parts is something that's like similar to me in this musical, but the parts themselves are, for the most part, very different. I would say like Dina is probably the most similar to other parts that I've played, but it's cool to do like such a wide range of parts in a show, which is unusual.
I'd like to break this up with a trivia question. With a reward. First person to raise their hand and gets the answer right receives a reward. Rick is not eligible. How many times does the phone ring in the dance room?
I don't know. 2.
2.
Yeah.
Wow. The Vans Visit branded face mask. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
I'm Holly. I worked at U of D Jesuit where Joe went, Holly Bennett, and I tried very hard to get him to do a show for me at U of D Jesuit, but he did them all at Mercy. But I work at Mercy now and produce those shows. So it's okay. And I pointed you out on the wall to all the students that I was like, I'm going to see him. But how long did you do training for the accents? Because they're very like authentic, right? Like you feel like we've been transported to another place. So how long did you have to practice just the accents?
I'll speak to that. So I joined the tour 6 months into this tour already starting. And so my rehearsal process was a little bit different than everybody else. But I had 3, maybe 2-hour sessions with a dialect coach. She gave me some rudimentary rules to follow, and then she would say the lines and I would say them after her and she would correct me. And after those 3 lessons, I felt pretty secure. And then when I felt brave enough, I would go around New York City. I would go into the coffee shops and try to order coffee in the accent. And when I found people like really leaning in to listen and try to understand me and help. And that was such a beautiful experience to see humanity wanting to understand and really pay attention and kind of like just zero in to make sure that they were getting everything that they needed or wanted to get. So not only was it a lesson in the accent, but also the experience that we're trying to create on stage, that like, I'm here to listen, I want to understand, I'm present, and that was a really, really beautiful, actually.
And we actually have a lot of native speakers in the cast too. So there are certain people in the cast who speak Hebrew and Arabic who, grew up around those accents. Not me, but other people.
So I'm originally, I did the film first, so I had to train for the film, and I'm originally from Iraq, so I used to hear my dad, for example, speaks rarely in English, and I recognize his, identify his accent, but and I speak Arabic, so it was easy for me to do this, but I had to study the Egyptian accent and the dialect, and the words are differ from Iraqi or Palestinian Arabic. So I had to mainly concentrate in this, and not mixing between the Palestinian, Iraqi, and the Egyptian. So this was my. But I had the people from. I had a teacher that she knows very well the Egyptian accent, so I worked with her quite a lot. And as Janet said, I would record it, and I follow it many times. And I met also people from Egypt. It's in Israel. It's very accessible. These people, because so it was quite a journey for me, and it took me some time.
Can I ask a question too? So this show has a lot of quiet in it, obviously. So as actors, sometimes I know it's hard to allow silence to be a character in the show. How can any of you talk about how this show is different in that the silence is part of what this story is?
Sure. I think that we all need to go back and recognize that that idea was solely David Cromer's, art director, who really wanted everybody to be able to feel like they were a part of this show, and really, like Janet was saying, really lean in and be a part of it. And there's no better way to do that than with silence, to make people just go, what's happening, what's going on, and really be a part of that. And it was a really, really brave decision, because when you go see a musical, obviously people are wondering, is somebody missing a line? Is something wrong? But it's such a freeing aspect of this show, where you can feel like you can sit in a moment and relate to someone, or take a moment to have an awkward silence between people who don't speak a similar language, and realize that these people are struggling to figure out something to talk about, or how to speak to each other. And in doing that, in allowing us to do that, I feel it really lets us get into the world of this show, because we're not being pushed to pick up the pace. I mean, a little bit, but we're not being pushed to pick up the pace to the point where we feel like it's unnatural. It's a very natural, warm, yet uncomfortable, awesome feeling to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say also that I haven't done a lot of shows, so to me this was just normal, and I really like. I think it feels really I don't find it hard. I find it like really fun to like sit in a moment, and it's like a very powerful feeling. Like you can just hold on to it as long as you want, not within reason, but like I don't know. That's my perspective. Is that it never was weird to me. It was just really fun.
I think it was also a huge element in the film, and I think again our director did an incredible job of capturing that same tone on stage, which is what you say, it's not common. He also mentioned somebody else in the Broadway cast to kind of help us sit in that energy. He says adrenaline is not your friend in this show. So your whole sort of impetus as a person on stage is like you want to give it all, and like right off the bat, like we're kind of trained that way, so to undo that is really refreshing and so nice. It's like when I'm the most tired is when it's the best. And I can just sit in the reality of me being exhausted and use that as a way into the world.
When we rehearsed it, when the show was in rehearsals for the Broadway production, I remember early on, some scenes, and they were just trying this. They really pushed the silence just to really find the awkwardness, that uncomfort. And it's like there were moments where it was like, wow, nothing's happening, and then they were tightened up. Then they were but it was interesting to watch that happen. And, we have the silence now. It's not as long as it was in those early rehearsals, but it's still extremely effective.
I have a question. Some of you know that I joined the band's visit as an understudy. And so some of the people on this stage, Leanne was one of them with me, Ali, down at the end there, Denna was on tonight, Alex is a swing. I wanted to ask you, and Hannah, what is your experience like as an understudy, and what goes through your mind before you go on stage?
Do I know these lines?
I think it depends on the part, it depends on the day. I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but Dana went on tonight, she was freaking flawless. It's your job to sort of step in at a moment's notice, and the one thing I will say is that your adrenaline sometimes gets the better of you when you're an understudy, and in this show that's so not helpful, that you really have to counteract that by being incredibly present and trying to breathe your way through it. In other shows, your adrenaline goes on and you're running around the stage like a crazy person, and it helps, but here it's not the case. So it's definitely taxing on your emotional state to try to get to that calm, even keeled place when you're first starting this show as an understudy, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's there's also this thing where it's I cover so many different characters, and I've been able to go on for a bunch of them. Every time I do it, it's this really weird situation where a week before I was just on for the person I'm talking to in this moment when I'm switching to this character. But it's really cool because after I get over the sort of oddity of it, it's really cool to be listening. You sort of understand what each person wants, and so then when you're on the other side of it, you kind of have to forget that, but also see it in a certain way. So it's like this constant change of wanting different things and being able to listen to that person, and also, in a way, understanding what they want. And it sort of feeds into the whole silence and listening to everybody and understanding where everyone is around you.
I'm going to speak as the music swing because I think this is the best gig I've ever had. It's really lucky to do it because since the show needs to have darbuka and oud in it, it's it's a really big part of the show. They figured they'd bring an extra person that could cover those two. So I'm not playing every night. So when I'm not playing, I'm practicing. So I can be in the show and just practice in my dressing room. But then when I do go on, it's still fresh. It's still new, and every night it's I go on. It's good. The hard part is if I'm on for a long time. I did 2 weeks on darbuka just now, and in the middle of that, it was okay, now I'm starting to feel what it is to do this regularly, and then you start to see more details, but then your mind starts to drift away at times, and then you're wait a minute, did I do that? Or so I'm starting to feel what it's like to actually do the show every night like they've been doing. But I can't complain. I think I'm just super lucky to be able to do that, to get stage time and to be able to work on my craft when I'm not on stage. So lucked out with that.
I would say probably the most difficult thing is staying connected to this world because you're not doing it every night. So the things that I do, I've made a playlist for each of my characters, and music is a way in for me with art. It's just a direct line. So that was kind of a fun project, and it's something that I listen to right before I know that I'm going to go on for somebody. And then language to me is paramount. So I have a lot of recordings from our dialect coach, so ours, who was nice enough to record things for me. So then it's all about finding the tangible things that connect you to being grounded back into the world, because that is probably the hardest thing to go on immediately, and adrenaline is not your friend. So finding the things that just basically bring you back down to this world, and those are the things that help me.
To add one more little thing,
was gonna say, it's also interesting because you sometimes only get to do it once. So like it goes by so fast and you're like, oh man, if only I could do it again. And then, you know, you wait a couple months, you do it one more time and you're like, oh man, but it's fun because you actually get to live it. Because you only do it once, it's really honest if you drop in, like what Dana was saying. Because you have to be, because you have no other choice, because you're not used to doing it, which is cool.
I have a question for you, Joe. What's it been like doing this show that you've been doing for so long in the city that you're from and for the people that have known you for so long? How's that been?
The word that I keep saying is surreal, because I sat, I think, like 5th row there with my family, with Ray, my sister Michelle, and my mother, and we saw Jersey Boys. This is in 2009. That's the last time I was in this building. I mean, the reality is I don't live here anymore. I live in New York. So every time I come home, which is usually for Christmas, for the holidays, I get to see the way that the city changes, but it's also, you know, you see how you are different. And you see how, in some ways, this isn't home for me anymore, but it's always home for me. So making that list for you guys of like places to go, things to do, was just as enjoyable for me to write as it would be for you guys to read it and experience those things. So I get to experience the city in a different way. I'm not living at home because I was there Ray put up with me for 1.5 years. I get to kind of live the life that I feel like I would have if I had decided to stay here. So it's fun. It's been a lot of work just talking to all the press outlets because I don't like to wake up early, so I've been waking up early and talk to people like Scott, which I'm very happy to do. But I just feel grateful. I never thought I would be up here. When I saw that show, 11 years ago, no part of me thought, you'll be up there soon.
13 years ago.
13
No.
years ago. Oh yeah, it's 2022. Yeah. I got a D in trigonometry and I almost didn't go to college.
Well, you did. Go blue.
Yeah, go blue.
Go blue.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. I love you all. I love you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe, we knew. You said you never thought you'd be up there, but we knew.
All right, I'll get out of here.